Quite often, we look at cybercrime basically from what we see on the news feeds. Just yesterday, I was checking through the EFCC portal. I saw 2 news items. 12 convicted in Abakaliki for cybercrime. In Ilorin, another 28 arrested. So basically, this is what we see every day. Numbers, prosecutorial numbers, investigative numbers. So we see it basically from that perspective. Now, in trying to establish the frequency of it, I did a quick search, a quick Google search for the keyword or the key phrase, cybercrime in Nigeria. And within seconds, it returned a deluge of related information. So I tried to distill it, so for lack of time, I tried to distill it to 1 per month for this year. It's been almost on a daily basis. So I'll just take us through a quick timeline of, at least 1 per month in this year. 1 headline on cybercrime in Nigeria. Nigerian man scammed my heart, my soul, my finance. American woman cries out. January. February, 11 Nigerians arrested in Ghana for cyber fraud. March, hush puppy caught in $400 fraud while in jail. That's March. April, Nigerian man extradited to Kentucky in relation with romance scam. May, online scamming fraud, 3 Nigerians arrested by Interpol. June, Interpol nabs another suspected Nigerian fraudster in relation to $12 million fraud. July, why Interpol arrested 28-year-old Nigerian. August, 3 Nigerian nationals extradited to the United States. September, FBI declares Nigerian wanted over $30 million fraud. October, 3 Nigerian banks report over 26,000 fraud cases in 6 months, just 3 Nigerian banks. And November this month, Nigerian fraudster Hush Puppy sentenced to jail, 11 years in jail. That was by the Washington Post. So basically, this is what we see every day. But does this tell us all of the story? Should we really look at something only from the prosecutorial numbers or the investigation numbers? Personally, I do not think it tells all the story. So before I go on, sharing this story, let me perhaps tell you my motivation and a bit of my background, so maybe you would see things a bit from my perspective and why I got into this miserable job of a forensic investigator. First, as a Nigerian, you're bothered by the rising caseloads. I am bothered as well, and particularly even more bothered because each time you go out of Nigeria and you attend conferences and you're talking about cybercrime, right there, almost on a daily basis, somebody's going to make reference to a Nigerian prince or a Nigerian widow of a dictator, romance scam mail and all of that. And that, for a Nigerian, is not something that is good. Also, buoyed by the desire to learn and continue to gain knowledge in this discipline, I decided to take on a doctoral dissertation project that has to do with Nigerian cybercrime. And that kind of exposed me to a lot of things and which shaped, a lot of what I'm going to discuss today, and also helped me birth an enterprise. While doing the doctoral program, I actually set up a company which would later see some of the things we do. Having laid that background foundation, I think we need to state this first very clearly, that Nigeria, we are not a nation of scammers, as it is put out there. The one-to-many relationship of a scammer is such that one single person in his room, maybe in Choba or in Lagos or in Abuja, could potentially send mails to hundreds or millions of persons in a day. So when all of the IP addresses point to Nigeria, the assumption is that perhaps over 1 million Nigerians are sending these mails out there. It is not so. There's a tiny number. And oftentimes, when you look at the caseloads of Nigeria, we lose sight of the fact that Nigeria is the largest black nation in the world, with over estimated 200 million persons. So expectedly, the caseloads will be high. The caseloads are high if you look at the other, very populated economies as well. So having said that, how bad is the situation? You already saw the numbers, you see the headlines. From a personal and professional point of view, I'd say very bad. Very, very bad. And I was privileged to speak to some of the top cybercrime investigators in this country by way of, during my dissertation, and there are lots of things which, I got to know. I wouldn't share that. I'd share what we know from the open source, which is what you see on your headlines. As at October, over 2,000 persons had been convicted by EFCC, 21 convictions. I took a random 20 days last year. I just picked 20 days in a month last year, and I discovered that there were 21 cybercrime convictions, which means that an average of one per day, at least in Nigeria. I'm not talking about arrests, I'm talking about convictions. Also, in a particular area in Lagos, Lekki area, in the space of 3 months, 402 arrests were made in just the space of 3 months for cybercrime. And then they have a very lucrative recruitment ring. And quite disturbingly, while university students were at home for about 6 months because of the striking university lecturers, there were Yahoo academies, that's the internet fraud academies that were springing up everywhere and teaching our young people how to commit fraud. Very disturbing. The next I try to look at is the motivation. My study had a framework. We used the theoretical framework by COREN and Felsen, which basically it's a situational theory of crime, which basically says that for crime to occur, 3 things must happen. 1, a motivated offender, in this case when we're situating it in the cybercrime environment as a cybercriminal. A suitable target, in this case, potentially you and I, or potential victims out there. And 3, absence of a culpable guardian, in this case, the law enforcement agency. These 3 things must happen. So the first is motivation. That's the motivated offender. What are those things that motivate our people to embrace cybercrime? The first is the very luxury lifestyle of cybercriminals. You see the picture on your screen, the big man in his blaze of glory in front of a fleet of cars. A university professor in Nigeria earns about average of $600 per month. So if you gather 100 Nigerian professors, their salary of their lifetime, and perhaps if there is anything like reincarnation and they reincarnate 5 times over, their salary will not be able to buy one of that car. So in a country that is challenged economically, how do you expect the youth to look at that professor and look at this young man in this very luxury, expensive lifestyle, and you think he will choose the professor? That attraction to luxury is a thing that's there. They offer enticing prospects. They offer lucrative reward. The next is the bloodless nature of cybercrime. There are criminals who ordinarily would still have ended up in a robbery or something. But robbery is very, very dangerous. You could get shot. But the cyber criminal stays in a cozy room and commits a bank heist in Switzerland in his cozy room. He transfers money, perhaps from Upper Manhattan to New York or Hong Kong or whatever. So it's a bloodless nature. That's an attraction. Also, the lack of a capable guardian, which we will look at in greater detail. The next I tried to look at was what would you call or what would you identify as the top 3 reasons? Quite surprisingly, I found out that the top 3 reasons are socioeconomic in nature, economic or socioeconomic or cultural in nature. Top of it is unemployment. Second is poverty. 3 is peer pressure. Yesterday, I did a random post on Facebook where I offered 10 tickets for this show, and I asked, what would you consider the top 3 reasons for rising caseloads? The response I got corroborated these findings. They are largely all socioeconomic in nature. So we need to deal with that. The next is the digital forensic readiness of our law enforcement agencies. That is situating them in the mode of the capable guardian, the fact that there is a lack of a capable guardian. Now, before I go ahead to answer the question, How forensically ready are law enforcement agencies? Let me state here very categorically that our law enforcement agencies, from my exposure to them, are doing a very fantastic job. There are a very small number of them, and within the limits of what they have, they are putting in a very decent shift. But that's where it ends. Nigeria is a nation of roughly 200 million persons, and given the rising caseloads, clearly they are overwhelmed. Clearly, the number of capable hands, clearly the number of forensic laboratories, clearly the processes and all of the handshakes they need to function effectively and efficiently is not there. So in other words, they are not forensically ready. Also, there are gaps in the justice system. Up until 2001, the Nigerian justice system did not admit digital evidence. So it only took 2011 before the Evidence Act 2011 was passed, which allowed for the admissibility of digital evidence. So from a point of maturity, it is not very mature at the moment. There are nations who have been admitting digital evidence for over 2 decades, but we are just about 11 years in the process. So expectedly, the justice system is still struggling with the language and the complexity of the digital evidence and digital forensics and all of the technical details that go with that. The next is the cybercrime law in Nigeria, or the gaps in the cybercrime law in Nigeria. The cybercrime law in Nigeria was passed in 2015, which is roughly 7 years ago. Unfortunately, it reads like something that was passed 15 years ago, paying premium on things like cyber cafes, as though that's the main means of accessing the internet. But beyond that, very disturbingly is the fact that it actually outlines all of these crimes and all of the penalties for it. Most of them carry a fine option, ranging from between 1 million to 10 million naira, thereabout. Now, in 2015, when the law was passed, 10 million naira was roughly $50,000. Today, $10 million is roughly $18,000. So the cyber criminal in Nigeria has had his sentence technically reduced from $50,000 to $18,000 because of currency differentials. Do not forget that the proceeds of his crime largely is in dollars. So these are some of the things that needs to be addressed. The fact that Nigerians don't even know the definition of cybercrime. We often just limit it to internet fraud. But it is much more than that. There's cyberbullying, there's cyber stalking, there are all kinds of complexities which every day online I see people commit these things, but they don't know. The next is the borderless nature of cybercrime. Somebody can be in PortHarcourt and wreak havoc in Europe, so that's an allure. And then next is to look at the challenges of cybercrime investigation. I'll just run through it. The fact that there is lack of forensic laboratories in Nigeria. I don't think there are up to 10 forensic laboratories, both privately owned and public government-owned. Lack of skilled manpower. There are only very few forensic examiners in this country. The rapidly evolving technological landscapes. Things are changing. I made mention of the Cybercrime Act. The fact that it's reads like an obsolete piece of documents. Complexities of emerging technology. There's an FBI report recently that says that most of the proceeds of modern-day crime end up in the crypto world. Unfortunately, the investigative capabilities of Nigerian investigators, and not just Nigeria, in most developing economies, and including even the developed world, investigating the cryptocurrency world is not very easy. The speed of cybercrime, all it takes perhaps is a click of a button and money is moved from Hong Kong to Malaysia. But to arrest a single person, you probably need to go get a search warrant or an arrest warrant and all of the things that follow. By the time you're ready with all of the documentations of his arrest to make sure that you don't get the fruits of a poison and you don't get into legal hurdles, by the time you come back, he has moved the proceeds of crime and perhaps maybe have deployed anti-forensic techniques to clear his trail. So these are some of the issues of it. Also, the lack of collaboration. Cybercrime is a borderless crime, so you need a lot of handshakes both locally and internationally. Funding challenges as well. Forensic laboratories anywhere in the world is very expensive. So it's something that is a big challenge. And then something that's often neglected, cybersecurity awareness. people don't know anything about cybersecurity. So we are trusting people. We are a culture where we trust ourselves. So if you see, for instance, a mail that's coming from your mother and says, oh, find attached your surprise, whatever, you see people click it because they trust their mother. They don't pause to say, did this really come from my mother? So cybersecurity awareness is something that we need to look at. Then the next thing is, what can we do as a people to address this? But before I answer that, let me say what we are doing and what I am doing. In my introduction, I made mention that during my doctoral dissertation, I got inspired to set up this company. So the first thing was, rather than end up writing dissertations or writing journal papers, try and get down there and try and do something and try and make things work yourself. So that is what birthed that. The next is, we had to realize and recognize that I'm the son of a teacher, so I believe in education. So the next is to understand that for us to tackle this, we have to raise competent hands, and there's a very big, massive gap in terms of skill set. So we reached out to a couple of tertiary institutions, and particularly we got into a technical partnership with Estel in National Open University. So we are their industry partners, where we help them in terms of curriculum development, in terms of research handshakes, in terms of exchange, in terms of internship opportunities, which we give to students of cyber security, students of digital forensics in that school. Now, that's not all. We also give them some of our staff to assist in project supervision. Presently, I also teach their doctoral students digital forensic and incident response, and I do that absolutely free. I'm not paid a dime for it, and this is part of our corporate social responsibility. I supervise their PhD and master's students as well, absolutely free of charge, as part of our resolve and what we want to do to help Nigeria develop competencies in cybersecurity. Also, we give very high premium. We have a very strong, very young workforce, which is good. Give them opportunity to learn, internship opportunities, free training opportunities to law enforcement. We have actually reached out to law enforcement, and we're waiting for them to respond in terms of offering free training to them. Also, presentations to the legal community as critical stakeholders. Have been privileged this year alone to address Nigerian Bar Association, one of their national conferences. I've also been privileged to address the NJC, the National Judicial Commission, that's their ICT department, because everybody needs to be brought up to speed if we want to solve the problem of cybersecurity in Nigeria. Cybersecurity awareness, we have been participating in a lot of cybersecurity awareness, like some of the pictures you're going to see will show. Also mentorship opportunities as well. The pictures you see on the screen, one is at Nile University, one of our staff members. The other is the staff of National Open University at our laboratory, and so on. One is addressing Nigerian Society of Engineers, also talking about cybersecurity awareness. And this is one of the NBA conferences, also talking about digital evidence and stuff. So what can we do as a nation? Nigeria must tackle her economic challenges. My experience and even the findings of my study show that no matter the number of prisons you build, no matter the number of forensic investigators or cyber crime investigators we have, we must learn to work from first principles, which is tackling our economic challenges. As we found out, all of the top 3 challenges that bring people to cybercrime are economic in nature. So we must tackle that. It's not, no nation is happy to send their youths in thousands to jail. So it's good for us to holistically tackle this problem. Also, we need more funding for law enforcement agencies, more training opportunities for law enforcement agencies, upgrade of the justice system, like I said, update of the Cybercrime Act, set up more forensic laboratories, rework the educational systems. If you look at your JAM booklet, you find it difficult to see schools offer cybersecurity. You cannot fight this thing if you do not teach your youths. If you don't teach people ethical hacking, they will go out to the underworld and learn it and come back and use it unethically. So it's good to teach our youths these skills so that they can know how to use it responsibly. And then also Cultural reorientation. You know, we are a people of values, a people that respect good value system. And then we suddenly are abandoning that and running after fancy cars, running after wealth and all of that. We need to reorientate ourselves and embrace our good old value system of contentment, our good old value system of, you know, following that which is right and staying on the path of what is right. Also, we need more collaboration from the international community, which takes us to what can the international community do to help. Rather than brandish us a nation of cyber criminals, there should be more handshakes between nations. There should be intelligence sharing, technical support, and this is not just to Nigeria, but to other developing economies. Cybercrime is a borderless crime. So looking at it in isolation of one country and you stay in the comfort of your zone, you're not immune. So we need to have more handshakes, operations and logistics support, training opportunities, and harmonize operations where necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, fighting cybercrime is not something that should be exclusive to the law enforcement agencies. We must all come together and help address this scourge. Thank you, and God bless.